Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to SDVoE Presents Face-to-Face AV with Justin Kennington. That's me, your host, Justin Kennington. Today I'm joined by a new special guest, by Nick Mitchell, who is the Vice President of the Sales Support Group in North America for Diversified. Nick, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Justin. Appreciate it.
If you don't mind, I have to imagine most of our audience knows who Diversified is, but tell us just briefly who Diversified is and what is the Sales Support Group? What do you do there?
Sure. Well, Diversified is one of the largest technology integrators, I would think, globally. We have a large U.S. presence and as well as in EMEA and Australia. My role at Diversified is leading the sales support group, which is sales engineering, it's sales administration, deal registration, proposal management, all the support resources that go into the behind the scenes efforts with our account executives to help win deals. And my background's really in the sales engineering side. That's how I came into the industry as an electrical engineer, sales engineer for most of my career. And I really focused on taking the process and the efficiencies and the deliverable standardization effort to the rest of the team. And that's kind of one of the main focal points for me with the team today.
Okay, that makes sense. What I wanted to jump in and talk about is we're both recently back from Infocom, where you joined us, thank you, on the SDVoE Academy stage, and you gave a talk about the concept of design standardization in AV and in communication technology. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? What does that mean, design standardization?
So design standardization really for me is just thinking about how we can be more efficient all the way through the process. Looking at the size and scale of a company like Diversified, and in the past comparing to maybe working for a boutique AV, integrator, there's a big difference there. We can't be custom for every single solution or every effort that we put together. Every design, every project is going to take a lot of resources. So from a design standardization, really I look at two things. One is holistically, okay, what's the design, what's maybe the functionality that we're trying to standardize and provide those solutions that will benefit our clients and help them achieve their business outcomes. But also it could just be components. And that's really, I think, at the end of the day, what I'm focused on is, hey, let's look at the components that we can standardize on. It'll create efficiencies from quoting all the way through delivery and day two services. And we can add standardized, basically kits that we create for Diversified and put those into our different systems or solutions. And so that's where we were drawn to SDVoE and other standardized platforms and protocols and things like that that we're leveraging across our solution set.
So that's an interesting last note. At first, I wanted to draw the distinction between, the kind of standards that I think about, right? SDVoE, Dante, HD-Base-T, those kind of things, and the kind of standards you're talking about, which is, we're going to use this product as a standard, or we're going to use this system design as a standard for a certain application. But then you just kind of tied them together. What is the relationship between your task of standardizing system designs and I guess my task of standardizing, products and interoperability? How do those tie together?
Yeah, I really think they go hand in hand. When we look at the different standards you mentioned, like Dante, all the different audio formats that are out there, all the different video proprietary AV over IP solutions, what is going to give us the most flexibility in terms of the different solutions and products, those kits that we want to create to achieve, the intended results, whether it's basic meeting rooms, Microsoft Teams, or, even in complex, multi-purpose rooms, all the way up to, live event spaces, things like that. So we take those standards, we look at the standards that are out there, and because those standards are adopted by multiple manufacturers, that gives us more capability, more flexibility with different issues that came up over the last few years, like supply chain, which is still an issue today in certain areas.
Sure.
And being able to leverage manufacturers or products that adhere to those standards gives us more predictability internally, gives us more benefit of training. Whereas if we focused on too many, proprietary technologies or custom technology solutions that we're going to implement, we really need those specialized resources internally. And that's challenging to have all those different specializations and scale at the same time. So there's certainly a place for those specializations and the need for certain, certain solutions and subject matter experts that can come in and focus on something that is proprietary. But when we're looking at how do I train our sales engineers to our project engineers to our field engineers and our programmers and our service technicians, it's having that standardized platform and the products hand in hand really is what's going to allow us to scale the training and just the repeatability, the predictability, and the reliability that we're going to be able to successfully deploy the projects, be able to manage them for our clients, and have happy clients because of it.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're building expertise in, for example, Dante, rather than expertise in product X and product Y and product Z and so on and so on. Yeah, that makes sense. I know there's a good answer to this, so I'm not putting you on the spot. At the beginning, you talked about how a company the size and scale of Diversified needs this kind of standardization just to be able to execute at the scale and around the globe the way you guys do. There must also be benefits for your customer, though. You've started to touch on some of them, but why don't we run through them a little more explicitly? What does standardization benefit the customer?
Sure. First and foremost, the customers and our clients we try to engage in a partnership with them to understand where they're trying to go and what their business outcomes are and what their desired business outcomes are. And when we look at our strategy as a company this size, it is focused on large multinational corporations, enterprise accounts, global partner programs, and we're focused on really taking the technology that our clients have, looking at what they have today, where their gaps are, where their issues were in the past, what platforms that they're standardizing on, whether it's Teams, Zoom, or for collaboration. And from a technology standpoint, obviously walking into a room and just having everything work, has always been the goal. And having end users that can go in there and intuitively understand how to operate the system. So for our clients, meeting that as one of the common goals across all of the pretty much every user, we look at consistency, reliability, and then how do we manage from a service perspective? How do we take the burden off of them from having to go in and send people into a room and troubleshoot a connector or something like that, or hey, I don't get video on the screen. So those kind of high level areas of user experience, reliability, and manageability of the systems are three of the areas where standardization really impacts our clients. And we provide those things through the different solutions that we standardize on, as well as with our managed service platform that we've talked about before, which is Pulse. It allows us to tie into the systems and monitor those, see if there's any errors, and be able to remotely fix those. And our clients can also use that tool on their own to manage their solutions, which is another just area of focus for us. Is with all the different products and technologies out there, everyone has its own cloud interface for control and management and monitoring, and so that gets unruly as well if you're going to try to manage 10 different manufacturers' products through their 10 different cloud services. So with Pulse, it allows us to tie them all in together. So there's one area you can get into any area of the system. You can see the full health of the system. So that's an area where if we didn't have standardization in all those different products or solution sets, then it would be more difficult for us to provide that for our clients as well.
Sure, there would just be more iterations, more combinations to have to design for, to test for, and ultimately become unmanageable. Your point about all these different cloud solutions, I've made the analogy before. It's like 20 years ago when we had 7 different remote controls, on the coffee table for every device. We've kind of gotten to that world with these cloud services. Everybody does it on their own, but I don't want to log into 7 different services.
Hmm.
I just want one place. So I'm glad you brought up Pulse. I wanted to touch on that. So this is, as I understand it, this is Diversified's own software product. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of different cloud services that we're leveraging. So we're integrating those
Okay.
together.
Well,
It can be
integrating. There you go.
customized. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it can be customized depending on the client's environment. There's different modules that we'll utilize for that. But
Okay.
ultimately, we're working with our manufacturing and our software partners to, ensure we have the APIs in place so that we can integrate their cloud solution into our platform, and be able to tie into those devices or cloud platforms.
Okay. When I started preparing myself to do this interview and think about the topic, I guess I had a picture in my head about the main benefit of standardization being sort of standardization of user experience, right? And the idea that I can walk into, if I work for Microsoft, whoever, I can walk into any Microsoft conference room anywhere in the world and kind of know what to expect, right?
Hmm.
As an end user. Um, and with that in mind, I had a whole bunch of questions here that were built around the assumption that the larger the customer is, the more they benefit from standardization, and that there's probably a whole class of small customers that this doesn't really matter for. And yet, as we're sitting here talking, I'm not sure that's true anymore. Talk about, is there a customer that it's most important to standardize for? Is there a customer that this doesn't really matter that much for?
Yeah, I think so. It's a good question, and I think even going back earlier into my career, working with individual small businesses, small medium businesses, compared to the large enterprise accounts that we're working with today. Um, the goal was still to have that consistency and the user experience be intuitive. Not have to hit a number, a ton of buttons to get a meeting started. Not have to go in and lose that 10 minutes, that
Yep.
everyone would complain about. And so from that standpoint, we were putting in occupancy sensors to automatically trigger everything to turn on. Through COVID, we were trying to eliminate having to touch a touch panel at all. Early
Yep.
on, we would use QR codes so that you could pull up a control panel on your phone or your laptop or an iPad, and just be able to run the meeting from there. And really, like what you mentioned with Teams and being able to walk into any room, especially on obviously with the larger clients. If you're work travel is it's obviously dwindled, but it's still happening, and there's still a hybrid work environment for many of our clients. And when you go to one building or one office in one side of the country, you want that reliability, or be able to walk into that room and have consistency from one room in the company to the other room anywhere else in
Yeah.
the company. And that's the same internally for how we try to handle our project delivery, our design process, programming, project delivery, service. We want that consistency from East Coast to West Coast globally, so that when even from a company standpoint, working with Diversified, you get a certain experience. As a client end user having design standardization, you get a consistent user experience. If it's a smaller company, you still want to have that consistency from one room to another. You don't want to go into one room that's set up for, say, Microsoft Teams, and walk into another room that does Microsoft Teams, but you have to hit a whole number of different buttons. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
companies like Microsoft or Zoom, they've dictated that user experience, and impacted the industry greatly from a
Yeah.
traditional audiovisual industry perspective. And so, we're still bringing other value to the solution and adding things in like Pulse or other features that we're adding into the system when you walk in the room, that that we can control lights, or display on off, how you're operating, bring your own device tech, connectivity, things like that. So that's where we bring some of our standardized design components or kits into those solutions. Even though even the core piece is a Microsoft Teams room, we might have X amount of Microsoft Teams kits that we've standardized on. That way our team is ready to go. They know how to deploy those. And from a user.
And that's just to paint a picture. That's sort of like, I'm just making up your kits for you, but
Mhm.
here's a kit for the 2-user scenario. Here's a kit for we got 6 users. Here's a kit for a room with a 20-seat table. Right?
Exactly.
These are the kind of kits, all built around Teams in this example. But you have a different set of cameras, a different set of speakers, a different set of microphones, et cetera, for those different cases.
Right. And so that's one example. Then you have other clients where they're going to have, maybe we work in higher education. So we're doing multi-purpose. We're doing training style rooms where the students are able to connect in and display their content on their display and the main display. That we can record. We can do some of those things wirelessly. We can do some of those through SDVoE. And standardize on those solutions so that we can scale no matter what size that training facility might be. It could be one with only a few tables. It could be a multi-divisible space that we have 4 different training rooms all along the same hall that can all interconnect, and leveraging a technology like SDVoE from a small to a large deployment. It really gives us that flexibility and still the consistency from us internally being able to deploy it, but then obviously the management on the client side and how they're interacting with the systems.
Yeah, I would say what I feel like I've learned here. Back to my question about can a small customer even benefit? I mean, even the way I'm seeing it now, even if I'm a very small company and I only have one little conference room, I think the reality is I'm probably not the one hiring Diversified, but go with me here. Even though I don't need consistency because I don't have another conference room, what I'm hearing is this kind of standardization makes you better and makes you, Nick, and Diversified execute better. And that's going to benefit anyone who's one of your customers.
Exactly. Yeah. If we, exactly that point, if we're putting in standardized solutions that we support, we're able to better support that for our clients. Not to say that we won't do the custom solutions, because we're still going to do that, every day. And a lot of our large clients will have those custom, systems. They want to have, the one multi-purpose or the event center or something like that. That's where the customization really comes out. But even from a user perspective, certain aspects of that system are going to still be consistent, from even the small rooms. But you're exactly right. I mean, we're able to be much better internally for us, be more efficient, and as a result, lets us be more efficient and better for our clients.
That makes sense. The last thing I wanted to touch on, and you're great with segues because you just got to it a little bit, is how you said every day you still do something custom, and that makes sense. Way at the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned, sometimes standardization means putting together a kit. Sometimes it means standardizing on a certain product, right? If I need a 6-channel microphone mixer, this is the product we go to, whatever that list is. But then how do you make the decision? When is it time to set aside the kits and build something fully custom, right? How does that come about, in a real interaction with the customer?
Yeah. So that is a good question. And I think it comes back to the core, that beginning partnership that we try to build with our clients. And we do a lot of design engagements where we're working with the architect to develop, hey, these are all the systems, or these are the room types, and we need to get systems in there for the client. A lot of times we get pulled into those engagements really late. We like to try to get involved way earlier. True partnership with the client, understanding where they're trying, what they're trying to do, and there might be certain areas of focus. I won't name client names, but we'll have a project for one client, and they want to have, say, 75% consistent, small, medium, large rooms, all kind of operate the same. Very easy to scale that with display size, maybe ceiling, number of microphones, or speakers would grow in number for the larger rooms. But then they have some unique requirements in terms of, hey, we want interactivity. We want to do some ideation. We want to be able to see everyone in different areas of the room. And so you start understanding, all right, well, what's the limitations of the core platforms or the kits that we've built? And so I mean, we've mentioned teams a couple times, through the interview, and basically we look at what the limitations of teams can provide, and where do we need to go outside of that, create something custom for the client, and then work with them on, hey, is it worth it? We're also thinking about the investment that needs to happen, and the maintenance of the system. And so when we start looking at all these different factors, and ultimately how the client interacts internally or externally with who they're engaged with, that's kind of when we look at, from a design standpoint, when do we need to go custom. And so we'll have our sales engineers and our account executives or our project engineers will work with our clients and really discuss those needs and get down into that user experience, all the functionality that they want to achieve, and then we'll make that decision point to go to that custom solution.
Yeah. All right. That makes sense. I mean, I think it's kind of how it works for anything, right? I'm imagining if I call up my contractor and say I want a shed in my backyard, I mean, well, I can run to Home Depot and grab a kit and throw it in the backyard, or we can start designing something, right? One process is simpler and more affordable. One process is more flexible, but comes at a cost of complexity. So there you go. I'm going to throw this last question out there, but I think we've already got our answer, because I think it's just about being smart. Is there any drawback to design standardization?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought of the negative side. I mean, one would, that I think most would think about is maybe lack of kind of innovation, because we look at, as a company, as Diversified, we look at innovation as being an important aspect of technology integration. How can we come up with solutions, take innovative solutions that are out there, integrate them together to create our own solutions for our clients, and differentiate ourselves from our competitors. So I think that all still can occur with the technical skill set and the sales engineers, the project engineers. The technical resources has just shifted in terms of everything's on the network now. So the training and backgrounds for maybe a technology sales engineer now, or rather than an AV sales engineer, is a little bit different. So coming out of school, looking at network certifications, getting that type of experience, understanding how everything runs over the network. From the design side, I think when even though you have standards, there's still room for innovation. I touched on this in my presentation at the show, which, you look at the different manufacturers that adopt the standard, and they can still come up with some additional flavors or features that go on top of the standard that allows them to differentiate themselves from their competitors. So you can kind of actually build that competition and create some innovation even with standardization. So I think that was the only thing that kind of stood out. And even though, from my perspective, while I'm focused on design standards and standardized kits, we always want to be open to, hey, what's coming? What's the future, enhancements of the standards, or where's the industry taking us in terms of, an easy one is just resolution. What's the next resolution? What's the next standard adopted resolution going to be? How are we going to support that? How much bandwidth is it going to take? Is our infrastructure that we're designing with today going to support those resolutions? So all those kind of factor in, and standards that support the future growth and expansion of the technologies, I think are really critical to us to be able to feel confident that we're going to deploy a system today. It's going to last, X amount of years, maybe not as long as things used to last, early on in my career where you'd be designing for 5 to 10 years out. But still, I think you can design a solution that's going to be flexible, especially with SDVoE and other networked standards that are out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Nick, this has been a great chat. I've learned a lot from it, and that's how I judge whether these interviews go well or not, because you shared some perspectives that I just didn't have yet. The way that this kind of standardization, makes an integrator able to execute better, and the way that benefits the clients, aside from just having things work the same for the client. So thanks for sharing that. And we're going to wrap the show there. Nick, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching Face to Face AV.
Thanks for having me.